Welcome to Concrete Block, your premier destination for in-depth analysis and discussion of the world's most pressing news stories. I'm your host, Walter, and we're glad you're joining us today. As we dive into our first segment, we're taking a closer look at the escalating tensions between Israel and Yemen. In a recent development, Israel has warned people to evacuate Sana'a International Airport in Yemen's capital, following a series of strikes against targets in the neighboring city of Hodeidah. The Israeli military spokesman emphasized that failure to evacuate and stay away from the area would put individuals in danger. This latest warning comes after the Yemeni Houthi group fired a missile that landed near Israel's main airport on Sunday, injuring 6 people. In response, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed retaliation against the Houthis, stating that Israel would attack in the future as it has in the past. The situation is complex, with both sides trading accusations and engaging in military actions. The Houthis have blamed the U.S. and Israel jointly for the attack on Yemen, while a U.S. defense official has denied any involvement by American forces. Meanwhile, Israel has launched several rounds of strikes against the Iran-backed Houthi group in Yemen, targeting ports, power plants, and other infrastructure. As we navigate this intricate web of international relations and military actions, it's essential to consider the humanitarian implications. The port of Hodeidah, which was targeted by Israeli strikes, is a critical entry point for food imports, with about 80% of Yemen's food supplies passing through it. The conflict has already taken a devastating toll on civilians, and any further escalation could exacerbate the crisis. We'll continue to monitor the situation closely and provide updates as more information becomes available. For now, it's clear that the tensions between Israel and Yemen are at a boiling point, with potentially far-reaching consequences for the region and beyond. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're diving into the world of international politics, where tensions are running high between Germany and the United States. Friedrich Merz. Germany's new chancellor has warned the U.S. to stay out of his country's domestic affairs. This comes after the far-right Alternative for Germany party received strong backing from allies of President Donald Trump. Merz, a conservative leader, made it clear that he values Germany's relationship with the U.S., but expects respect for their sovereignty. He condemned recent statements from American officials as absurd observations, without specifying which particular comments sparked his response. It's worth noting that during the German election campaign, the AID party gained support from prominent Trump allies, including Elon Musk and J.D. Vance. The situation is complex, with Germany's domestic intelligence agency recently designating the AfD as a right-wing extremist party. This move has been met with criticism from some U.S. officials, who argue that it's an overreach of power. However, the German government maintains that this decision is necessary to protect their constitution and the rule of law. As we explore this story, it's essential to consider multiple perspectives. On one hand, Germany has a right to self-governance and should be able to make decisions about its own political landscape without external interference. On the other hand, the U.S. has a long history of promoting democracy and human rights around the world, which can sometimes lead to tensions with other nations. It's also important to acknowledge the historical context of Germany's relationship with extremist groups. The country has a unique experience with right-wing extremism, given its past, and is taking steps to address these issues. As we continue to follow this developing story, it will be interesting to see how the U.S. and Germany navigate their relationship. Will they find common ground, or will tensions escalate? One thing is certain, this is a critical moment for international diplomacy. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block, folks. We've got a fascinating story to wrap up the show today. As you may have heard, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney recently met with U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House, and it was quite the encounter. Now, We know that the relationship between these two leaders has been complicated, to say the least. Trump has made no secret of his desire to renegotiate trade deals with Canada, and Carney has been vocal about pushing back against what he sees as threats to Canadian sovereignty. So, how did their meeting go? Well, according to reports, Trump once again floated the idea of Canada becoming the 51st U.S. state. Yes, you heard that right. Trump seems to think that the U.S.-Canada border is just an artificially drawn line, and that Canada would be better off as part of the United States. Carney, understandably, was having none of it. He rebuffed Trump's suggestions, emphasizing that Canada is a proud and independent nation with its own unique history and culture. And he made it clear that his government will not be intimidated by Trump's threats or bullying tactics. Now, we know that some of our listeners might be thinking, but Walter, isn't it time for Canada to just get on board with Trump's vision for North America? And to that, we say, not so fast. While it's true that the U.S. and Canada have a long history of cooperation and trade, it's also important to recognize that Canada is a sovereign nation with its own interests and priorities. And let's be real, folks, Trump's track record on trade deals has been mixed at best. Remember NAFTA? TC. Yeah, that didn't exactly work out as planned. So we can understand why Carney and his government might be a little skeptical about jumping into bed with Trump on this one. Of course, there are also those who will argue that Canada needs to be more flexible and accommodating when it comes to trade negotiations with the U.S. And that's a fair point. After all, the U.S. is still Canada's largest trading partner, and it's in both countries' interests to find ways to work together. But at the end of the day, folks, this is about more than just trade deals or economic interests. It's about national sovereignty and the right of Canadians to determine their own destiny. And on that score, we think Carney is absolutely right to stand firm against Trump's overtures. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay informed.